clear up there where I finished the tournament. It literally, you know, my tournament actually started down there on the docks on that inside river bend swing, and then it kind of moved back as the week went. So because I got bit back there in practice, but it was all small. And the first day of the tournament, the fish I caught back there were small. And the second day when I went back there, I don't even know why I went back there. I was like, I'll give it one more try, and they were just there, and the big one showed up. So I mean, it was like they were moving, and I was just kind of moving right with them. It was pretty crazy. It was almost like, yeah, I mean, it was so close to spring fishing, it wasn't funny.
So when you said you have been on the lake a little bit, a few times, or
yeah,
I've been
on there. I've been on there a few times before. Yeah.
Okay. So you were looking for shad? Like what? I mean, what was your goal like going in there? Like what were you looking for in practice?
I mean, it's fall. It's Lake of the Ozarks. I knew it was going to be, you know, buzzbait plopper, you know, LBJ, you know, something of that nature. I really didn't know if scoping would plan. I mean, scoping was completely off the books for me. I wasn't going to do it in that place. I was going for broke. I wanted to try and get some bigger fish, and so my intentions and goals was just trying to find that cooler water. When I put on the first day down there, like Shawnee Bend area, it was all 67, 68, 72. And I was like, man, this water's really warm. And I thought if I could find some cooler water down in that, last time I was there, it was in the high 50s to low 60s. And those bigger fish were up there, and they were pretty, and just, you know, they hadn't been beat up on, and them fish were just, they were eating. And once I got back there, I mean, it was just like running, you know, that flat back there just had a bunch of washed in laydowns from a flood, and that creek, you know, is still alive coming through there. And most of the fish, after I looked at it again, I think yesterday on Google Earth, had a clearer picture of it. And pretty much everything I fished was, you could almost see when it's clear, the actual creek channel coming through there. And the logs that I caught the biggest fish on were the ones that were like adjacent to that little darker patch coming through the middle of that thing.
That's cool, man. When you go back and you're like, I wonder why those fish were there, and then you actually figure out why they're there.
It clicked. So I mean, at that point, and you know what, I had that thing to myself the entire week. I mean, I did run into Cook back there one day and talk to him. He said he wasn't doing any good, and other than that, nobody else was back there until the second day of the tournament. Some of the kayakers was back there. They actually seen me catch a big fish, and the one guy said, "Hey, are you in a tournament?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm out of here then, dude." He said, I don't need to see any more. And I said, well, I appreciate that. And I fished. And then, of course, the second day, I mean, it's all on camera. I got just covered up after about 9:30 when we went live and everybody started figuring it out. It was, there's probably 30 pieces of structure back there that I was throwing at. And I'd say any one time I had maybe 8 or 10, because them guys were like literally leapfrogging in front of me and doing the exact same thing I was doing, except for the glide bait deal.
That's what I was going to ask you about that, because I was watching some of it on live. You know, I got to see, I didn't get to watch the whole thing solid, but I just kind of chimed in for a little bit. And I remember there was a section where you were fishing on that flat and you were talking about the kayakers, but I couldn't really tell. I was just watching it on a phone, so my perception, I couldn't really see in the background very far, and I was wondering exactly what happened. So that makes that.
Yeah, they were literally. I mean, at one point I had a boy in a boat that literally came up like maybe 50, 75 feet from my boat, started flipping the lay down beside me. The next one I would have went to, and I, you know, just kind of calmly said, obviously the.
Hold on, let my dog out. My wife's home.
Go get her, Phil.
It's my guard dog. She hears just the slight. She's probably not even home. She's probably heard some little noise, and she goes,
like, I gotta go, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. She's got to protect the house, even though she weighs like 13.5 pounds and she sleeps all day. When she hears a little noise, she becomes like a 200-pound Saint Bernard and thinks she's going to run everybody off. So are those kayakers? They knew you were fishing, right? I mean, they knew you were in a big derby, right?
100%. I literally. So I had a follow boat that was there with another camera in it, and he kind of said a little something to him, and most of them kind of dissipated, and then once that happened, a little later in the day, they showed up again, some new ones, and I kind of said, hey, I said, I kind of said something out loud. I just said something along the lines of, I guess the camera in the back of the boat is not clue enough to give me a little bit of room. But yeah, they were up there, and then towards the end of the day, they kind of petered out a little bit. So I didn't let it bother me. I just kept fishing my stuff, and I didn't care if they were on it or not or where they were at. I just if I wanted to fish it, I went to it. So, but normally something like that would have spun me out. I'd have been all kinds of bit out of shape. But I don't know. It was a good day. I mean, I was catching fish. I was worried about that fifth one. I had one about 6, completely just blow out of the water. Missed my buzz bait on the last day right after the cameras went off. My cameraman seen it, and he was like, "Holy cow, what a fish!" And I said, "I know." And I think each day, you know, I probably missed 2 or 3, quality bites each day that were just big, and they just didn't connect. So, I mean, it was in the second day when I had the big sack, I had one on a glide the last probably 10 minutes of the day that I called a 2-pounder out with that ate my glide, went underneath the edge of a float, got hung up on a chain that was hanging down, and then like sit there and flopped around to the point where he had all the hooks out of his mouth but one, and then comes unhooked and swims right over to the boat and opens his mouth beside the boat. And I just reached down and grabbed him with glide and all, like he just gave up. And I mean, I was like, well, I mean, I guess when it's your day, it's your day. So I'd rather be lucky than good anytime. So,
hey man, it's the end results are the same. Whether you're
yeah.
lucky or good,
Yeah, I know. But I tell you what, I was super calm the whole tournament. I wasn't. I didn't even have butterflies the last morning going out, which is kind of abnormal for me. I'm usually kind of, where should I go? What should I run? Who's going to get to what before me? And one of my roommates, Baron, he said on the night before we were sitting downstairs, and he said, "Man," he said, "you can't worry about that." He said, "You can't worry about who's going to be on what or if somebody's going to beat you to it." He said, "Just go and fish it." He said, "If you worry about that stuff all the time," he said, that's going to drive you crazy." So, but
yeah, and I think there's something where if you've got I mean, you threw a couple different baits, but I mean, the buzz bait was kind of, for the most part, that was what you did the most of your damage.
Yeah.
But when you when you like going into, day 3 or whatever day it is, and you have a bait and you have total confidence and you've only got 2 or 3 rods out in the front deck, I think there's something about, like, there's kind of a peace of mind that happens when you know what you're going to do. It is what it is, and you're going to leave it all out there.
So on the first day, I caught my big fish on that log, and then I went back in there and I caught a couple more. And at that time, I had about 11 or 12, and I was thinking, man, if I just catch one more 5-pounder, I told myself, if I catch one more 5-pounder, I'm gonna be in that 16, 17 range. I'll be right there with the leader for the first day. I might, I'm gonna move up a bunch. And when that happened, it was like 5 casts later on that buzzbait, I catch that 6.5-pounder, 654, whatever it was.
That's huge.
If I get him in the boat, I mean, he's hooked up good, trailer hook, regular hook. I mean, he wasn't getting off, and I put him in the boat, and man, I got chills all over it. It was just like, holy cow. I realized what I just done. And at that point, I still only had 4. And I made another cast, like 3 casts after that, and I get a loop in my reel, and I have like 50-pound braid on. It casts and it breaks my buzzbait off, and it goes sailing. But it's got like 20 feet of line on it, and the line just lays out there on the surface and floats. So here I am running across the flat up there trying to get to my line before that thing sank to the bottom. We can't leave the boat or anything. And your confidence, like you said, gets so high in one bait. I was like, I did not want that buzzbait to get away from me. So,
yeah,
exactly. Nothing on the planet would have sounded the same to me,
Yeah, so, that thing had the right juju. That buzzbait had the right little squeak.
Yeah, had the right juju. Everything was good about it. And I was like, there ain't no way I'm letting that thing get away from me. And then I tied it on, and it wasn't just, a little bit later I caught that too, but I ended up calling that smaller one out, right before weigh-in on the way in. But I mean, it's
blade. Floor carbon would have sunk right to the bottom, but
sunk like a rock. Oh
yeah.
I'd have been out there in 2 feet of water with an 8XD or something out there trying to dredge up my line.
Big old rattle trap, a 3/4 ounce rattle trap did a pretty good job. So you were you had like 11, a little over 11 pounds, almost 12 pounds on day 1. Is that right?
Yeah, like 11 day 1. I was in 17th.
Okay, 17th.
So I was about 6.25 pounds, 6.5 pounds back.
That's a good spot to be in, though. You're still inside the top 20. That's still, you know, you're well within striking distance for sure, especially on a tough tournament, you know, where even 15 pounds could put you in the top 10, that kind of derby for sure. And then you bust a 20, would you bust 21 pounds or something that day?
21.8, yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge bag.
Still had a 2-pounder in the bag.
That's true. Dang, you could have had 24, 25 maybe.
Oh yeah, because I left. So on the last day when I caught that one on camera on that glide on that same log, I missed one about that size the day before on a buzzbait. He completely missed it, and that's when I went in that day. I was like, God, I could have literally had like 25, 26 pounds today. So that's huge on that lake that time of year.
It is.
I know they're catching them like that in the spring.
Oh yeah, in the winter too. That's a really good winter lake. The weights in like late January, February, and March. You'll see some 25, 26 pound bags because they're in there for sure.
Yeah,
they really get on that brush. You know, that 10 to 15 foot brush, maybe even a little bit deeper. Like your scopers usually win those winter derbies, throwing an A-rig, jerkbait, that kind of stuff. But that lake's full of. It's one of the best lakes in the Midwest as far as, you know, 4 to 6 pounders and numbers of fish. But you guys hit it at a really tough time. And like what you said a while ago with that water temperature being like high 60s and low 70s, if it would have been like low 60s and maybe touching like the high 50s, I think it would have been insane. Like the bite would have just been kicked on because right before the Big Bass Bash, which we were talking about backstage, which was about a month ago, the bite was on fire. There was like it's kind of like that late summer thing kind of starts happening for a couple weeks. You know, the days are getting shorter. The water's still warm, but you get the shorter days, and those fish it's kind of like a pre-feed bag thing that happens for a couple weeks down there. The bite was, in fact, if you go back and look, you know, like maybe a month and a half ago and look at some of the weights in the tournaments, they're pretty good. And then around the bash, for some reason, it got kind of started getting tougher. And then you guys hit it when it was like super, super tough. So once it gets down to like the low 60s and high 50s, it probably started getting pretty good again. You know.
Yeah, I think they get to chewing a little better, but I 100% think this tournament was just based on just aggravating them, you know, knocking them on top of the head and aggravating them. I think is what was the deal. That's why I think the few scopers that were trying to scope, they caught some fish, but it wasn't nothing like the guys running ploppers, buzz baits, and, you know, big spinner baits or chatter baits or whatever everybody else was doing.
Yeah. How many fish or how many bites do you think you got off of that one log?
So the one log that I caught the 4s off of, I caught a pair of 4s and a 2 and missed 2 more. So that's 5 off of that log. The log in the back that I caught the 5 and the 2 off of on the second day, I actually caught 8 fish in a row off the same log.
Crazy. How big of a log was that? Like how long do you think that log was?
I don't know, probably 22, 24 feet long, and it had a little root ball on one end and had about a 6-inch branch that came off of it, and the log was probably 8 or 10 inches in diameter.
And it was sitting on the little bit of a creek channel?
Yeah, sitting right up on the edge of the creek channel, and it was just, you know, and that little creek deal there was probably maybe 10, 12 inches deeper than the rest of it. I mean, I seen that in the first few days, but so the rest of the tournament, I turned everything off. I didn't want anything on to, you know, clicking and pinging, and I was trying to be quiet when I approached those logs. I stayed a big, long cast off of them. I mean, I'm talking about a cast because there's a couple times that fish come up, crack my buzzbait, and my buzzbait was like 8 or 10 feet from the log when they hit it. So they had followed it for a ways before they ate it. And then even on camera, you can hear me both, you know, on the last day talking because it was kind of cloudy and overcast, and it was dead slick calm. The minnows were popping everywhere, you know, shad were popping everywhere back there. And I was talking to myself and the camera guy, and I said, as soon as that sun starts to pop through and it brightens up a little bit and get a little bit of wave action back here, I said, they'll be on these logs and I'll start catching them. That was the big one I caught on the last day. That was my 3rd pass to around that stuff. That was my 3rd go around without having a bite on any of it.
Huh.
So I literally hit all that stuff and was coming around on my 3rd try.
Yeah, just a timing thing. I
think they were just out roaming. And then as soon as because we were coming off a pretty good sized moon and stuff too, I think they were just roaming on that flat. And then once it started kind of brightening up a little bit, they sucked up tight to the edge of that stuff in the shade, and then they'd be there.
Yeah, that's cool to hear that. I've had that. I've fished with some really good scopers on Kentucky Lake, and they'll struggle in the morning, and they're not worried because for the same reason you just said, like they express that about 10:30, 11 o'clock when that sun starts getting high, these fish that are out there just roaming around and scattered, they'll pull up
Yeah.
tight to that cover and they'll start getting bites. And that's exactly what happens. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, some people will get discouraged though. They'd leave. They're like, they're not here. I've caught them all. They've moved out, or they're just not going to bite. But
Yeah.
you've been doing it long enough. That it's just like a timing thing. You got to wait for them to get set up.
Yeah, if you got confidence over there, I told myself I was giving it. So every day I never really got up. The earliest bite I got there was that last bite on the last day, and that was 10:39. Before that, I never caught a keeper fish on that flat before like 10:40.
Huh.
So yeah, if I'd have went up there and just went through it first thing in the morning and practiced it, I had one or two other guys that called me and said, "God, I practiced that same flat. I was in the morning, didn't get bit." And it was just a timing thing. It was just a little bit later in the morning when it started getting bright, and they were up there to be caught. So
that's cool, man. Because that's an interesting dynamic for practicing, because you got a lake. Lake of the Ozarks is pretty big, but let's say you got a lake that's like I don't know, 20,000 acres, and there are some obvious areas where the fish should be. You could have folks in practice come through an area in the morning, not get bit, and then let's say they come through at 7 o'clock and they're fishing 7 to 9 or whatever. This place sucks. They're leaving. They don't get any bites, and then somebody comes in at 10, from 10 to 10:30. There's a feeding window, and they whack them, and then somebody else comes in from like 11 to 1. Nothing's going on. They're like, I'm going to scratch this off of my list, and then somebody comes in a little bit later and they catch them. So there's like, let's say 4 people fish that area, but only 2 of them know its potential because they pulled in there at the right time. That just shows you how timing is.
Yeah, how many times have you been in a tournament? Yeah, how many times have you been in a tournament and you like wanted to throw a frog and didn't get bit on it, so you put it down in practice and you didn't pick it up during the tournament, or you didn't get enough bites out in the tournament to do any good, and then you come in and your buddy comes in and goes, "Oh my gosh, we smashed him on a frog today. We must have caught 30," and it's like, it's so aggravating. So just like you just mentioned, if you'd have went through that area, say flipping a jig, and it was low light and those fish are roaming around and they're not holding tight to the docks or whatever, or to whatever piece of the cover you're on, and then you come back through there at 10:30 and the sun's out and it's making shade, you know how the fish act on that lake. They get that shade. It's to their benefit. It's not like, they're not vampires, and they're not going to melt. They can see and target stuff better. So
yeah, they're predators, man. They like to use the shade and nature to ambush their prey, for sure, especially when they're in that skinny of water. Yeah, it's a timing thing. That's happened to me several times. There was one time, I think it was last year, but I had a really rough day, and I mean, I caught some fish, but I didn't catch them like I thought I should, and I knew I was just missing something. I get back to the dock and I was talking to this dude, and he'd caught them really good, and I'm like, "What'd you catch them on? A swim jig?" And I'd thrown a swim jig. I'd thrown a swim jig. That's one of my favorite baits to throw, and I got a lot of confidence in it. And I gave it a decent amount of time, and I picked it up a couple times throughout the day, but I was fishing it too shallow or too deep. He was fishing really, really, really shallower than I thought the fish would be. And he just hit the right stretch at the right time, because if I'd have caught a couple fish on it when I was throwing it, I would have kept throwing it, and I would have probably tried to expand on it and tried different water depths and stuff. But when you throw something, you don't get any feedback. After a while, you're like, oh, they're not on this.
Right. So like when we were down there at Amistad, we talked down there, we did a little podcast when we were down there at Amistad, and I told you, and it was the same thing down there. I mean, the fish moved from the first to the second day, and I didn't catch up with it until the third morning. And I was like, I felt pretty dumb, dropping over 20 pounds on the last day, and I could have been doing that the whole time. I knew in my head to do it, and I got so stuck on what I thought was going to be the deal that I completely overlooked, what the best way was to catch him. So not that I could overtake him, Perkins, he straight smashed him. So
yeah, right.
But
I mean, and then you can go. That's the crazy thing about fishing. It's like you will never master fishing. It's impossible. I don't care how old you are. I mean, look at Rick Clunn. He's still, you think he would be able to just, all the knowledge that he has, there's a bunch of them out there, but it's something you never master. And so you're talking about Amistad. you figured that out, you could go back the next week and have the exact same conditions and not even get a bite on the same bait, you know, because something.
I've got a buddy that lives down there, literally had a tournament the next weekend and followed me around on the boat, seen what I was doing, knew what I was doing, and could never catch those fish in the following big bass tournament that they had the following weekend.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's 100%. You know, my dad, I used to always say it too, but you can't catch another man's fish. So, you know, it's real hard. You know, you could give me the exact lowdown. It's, you know, I may go catch one or two, but I'm not going to catch them like you did. So,
yeah, and everybody works their bait a little different too, you know, just subtle little differences.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know, it's an animal. Anytime you're dealing with an animal, all the variables kind of go out the window because just when you think it's completely different. Just like forward facing sonar and stuff coming into play, you know, these days, and all the stuff that we thought we knew, and all the years we had fish chasing our base for the boat that we had no clue that they were even doing it. And I mean, look how much we've learned because of that. So, but you know, and then now next year in the NPFL, where that's gone away. So I guess we'll have to start over from scratch and learn fish a little bit different next year again, you know?
Yeah. What do you think about that? I haven't ever talked to anybody about that. I mean, I talked to Al a little bit about it, but
it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. It's always plan B. You know, you can always go out and find some floating fish to go, you know, pick on and try and catch. I'm either way about it. I kind of think banning stuff is bad right across the board. I know that there's a few guys leaving that I really like that I wish weren't, you know. But because of that, you know, some of them ain't got a choice either. But I don't know. I'm 49 years old. I mean, they've been calling me grandpa all week and up there, you know, because I had my first grandbaby, and we've been thank you. And I've always been a shallow junk power fisherman, 20 rods on the deck of the boat. That's always just kind of been my deal. We've never really catch any two fish on the same thing, just fish what's in front of me and do the best I can. So I don't know. It's going to be hard fishing any kind of derbies. I mean, it's going to be hard for the MLF guys to go out there and fish one day on and one day off. I mean, how do you float that? Like in the invitationals, how do you monitor one day on and one day off and one day back on if you make the championship? I mean, that's got to be brutal to know that you could go out and scope floaters and catch 20 pounds in practice. Do you go out there and try and blindly do that? I mean,
yeah, I know. That's a lot to think about. Or the BPT, you know, they get one period in the BPT, one period with it, 2 periods without. Which period do you use it? Which period? I don't know. There'll be some strategy with that. Obviously, it's tricky.
Yeah, I think the majority of those guys will probably chase bite windows, or I think they'll chase depending on how good they're doing with it, or I think that they'll do. I think most of them will probably do the early morning top water, crank in, try and get that, you know, low light condition bite or whatever going, or first thing in the morning bite going, you know, and then maybe the second period try and play catch up instead of wait till the end of the day and then maybe give them something to build off of for period 3. I would have to say a lot of them are going to use it in the second period.
That's what
I think. If I was in that position, I think that's probably where I would be in that position.
Yep, just for the reasons we just talked about, how the fish tend to pull up tighter to cover, you know, in the middle of the day, late morning, early afternoon, and that's typically that second period.
Yeah, and then give them the afternoon to get settled in, where you can come in and go around docks or lay downs or whatever, and go back to old school fishing and trying to catch them. So,
yeah,
but I'm super interested to see what people pull ahead. If the same guys still staying solid, or if it's you know, some of the old school hammers start to show out again, you know.
It's interesting, man. I'm excited about it, just as a, you know, somebody that just sits back and watches a lot of live footage, because you got the people trash talking like, oh, these young kids can't catch a dang thing without that front looker, and, you know, people that are in the know. You know, my theory is anybody that makes it to the elites is pretty dang good. They're going to be able to catch them. You know, they know where to find fish to start off with. And I think they're going to be pretty good, but I don't know how good they're going to be without it. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out. But I'm excited about it. I mean, I think
you put what, 100 and some elites in a group together, and you know, it's 100 and some elites, and those guys, they all catch them, and they're there for a reason, and they've earned their right and nothing really stands out. But then you take, 12 or 14 of those leads and you put them with the NPFL, and they stand out a little bit. I mean, you see some of the reports throughout the course of the year. You can tell those guys fish. Their mindset is to catch fish and earn some money, and that's what they do for a living, and they stand out a little bit more. Not taking anything away from any of the grassroots guys that are coming up in the NPFL. I think every one of them in their own right throughout the course of like the couple years I've fished have been, they've been in that top 10, or they've scared it, or they've come in with a sack of fish and they've shown that they can catch them. So they're there because they're their local lake hammers. They're the guys that every one of them's won something at one point in time or another. So, and all of them are a bunch of really good guys. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better group to fish with. So,
yeah, it seems like a cool, circuit to be fishing. It seems like, most people, it doesn't seem like there's the drama. You get a lot of drama in the other two circuits, and it seems like the NPFL has skirted a lot of that. Now, I know when the no forward facing sonar thing came out, that created a little bit of a buzz, but it still seemed to not get, super nasty. It just kind of, there was a little bit of a bump when people talked about it, and then it just kind of fizzled out, and they're like, oh, that's the way it is, which, it's kind of business wise, it makes sense, because it gives people that are not a fan of it a place to come over and fish if they're fed up with, fishing against people that are using it. So,
well, I mean, the ownership does a really good job. I mean, everybody's got complaints. Everybody wants stuff in their favor. I mean, I would love to have all 6 tournaments could be from March to May, and I'd be good with it. I mean, I'm a spring guy. I want them up there. I want them on the bottom, or I want them where I can find them. But all of us got our complaints. We got shad spawn guys. We got offshore brush pile fishing guys. We got guys that are strong suits in the fall. So everybody's going to have some kind of complaint. But for the most part, as far as a smooth run tournament, being able to run your rig across in front of the stage and get exposure for the people that are helping you. Most of us are, I would say, to be honest with you, I'd say probably half the people that are in the NPFL got maybe a third or half of their entry fees paid. Most of them are earning that money and paying it out of their pocket, at least most of them that I know. So they're there and they're putting their own money up to compete and hoping to, rotate enough money through to kind of break even at the end of the year, and they have a good time and get an opportunity to win and get an opportunity to fish against some elite guys and stuff. And all those guys are super down to earth, even the elite guys. And, and I've noticed, like, somebody loses an ear on a prop. Instead of everybody just being quiet, nobody helping anybody out. The phone calls start and the text messages start till we find this guy a prop, or if somebody's got a spare part, or, or a hub goes out on a trailer or whatever. Everybody, the messages start and amongst the anglers, and sooner or later we got dude fixed up and he's ready to go. We want everybody to fish. So that's what's pretty cool about it. So I think no matter what happens, even coming up in the future with no forward facing sonar stuff with the NPFL, I'm curious to see who's coming next year. We've already got a list. We've got guys that are committed, and that stuff will be coming out. And I think they'll be doing some new press releases and stuff on the rest of the schedule, which is probably going to be pretty inviting for some of the guys. So, but we'll see what they, we'll see what they come up with for fishermen that are coming. I know that there's a couple big names that are coming over again next year too. So,
yeah, it's cool. So as far as have everybody in the NPFL so far, they don't really have a problem with these like Bassmaster League guys coming over, or the actual make a living pro guys? Has it been?
I've never heard of a single person complain.
That's the feeling I get too. Yeah, I haven't heard any bickering or anything about it, because usually if people are rumbling about it, you'll see like a post on Facebook where they're talking trash or something, but it doesn't seem like
it hasn't bothered me fishing against those guys until I was in the top 10 and I was in the weigh-in line, and I had, Perkins and Cook and Lester and Cox, or Webster and Cox, and I got those guys in the line in front of me. Then it was a little sicker feeling, because those guys don't not catch them. So
yeah.
Drew and Joseph both scared the bejesus out of me. Trust me on the So
Yeah, I know that was one of the best weigh-ins because I was watching the day 3 weigh-in and I thought, I don't know, I had the feeling that Joseph might have won.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It just felt like that was going to happen, and just kind of the way that Big Al set it up, you couldn't tell, and he didn't know. There's no way
he
it's
didn't
that
know.
tight. So the top,
Yeah, nobody
top 3 guys
nobody
were
knew. Yeah,
within
Luke
12
asked me
ounces of each
today.
other.
Luke asked me today. He said, "Did you know?" I said, "No," nobody knew. Nobody had a report. I thought I had about 11 pounds in the box. My cameraman thought I had 12 or 12 and a quarter. They grew a lot when I put them in the bag, and I think he might have been texting his boss a little bit, and because he was asking how I was doing, but I think they were just trying to get things organized for what was about to go down. But we don't have no clue. It's we don't get to see the leaderboard. We don't get to talk to anybody. And I could tell people were nervous because my phone was dinging from 1 o'clock when the thing went off until the end of the day, and it's like I completely shut it off because I didn't want to look at it. I know it was buddies that were texting and jumping in there trying to see what I did, or if I actually got 4 or 5 or what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, geez, look, it couldn't be any tighter than this.
No.
I mean, it's like what, 12 ounces away, 12 ounces between you and Drew.
Look at the numbers of fish. Not even. I didn't even have a limit.
That's right. You had 13.
Neither Joseph
had 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just that was a very unique tournament.
Yeah.
That was an old fashioned grinder, but good weights though. I mean, you had a pretty dang good average, man. What'd you have, like 3.5 pound maybe average?
Yeah, I think maybe Ken told me 352 or something like that.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah. I was obviously more than satisfied with that, but we were having bets. Barrett and Jesse we were having bets the night before the tournament started. We were out there. We were in the house trying to decide. Then we were still doing it in the boat on the first morning of the event. We're out there taking guesses on how many limits, how many of the field would blank, and I was thinking like, 50%. He's like, nah, there ain't even 30 going to have a limit. And I was like, nah, 50. These guys are good. They're only 50%. We come in, I think it was like 27 the first day had a limit. And it was like, it was tougher than I thought.
It was
that last day. I was super worried. Yeah, I was super worried when I come in the last day. I literally pulled up to the dock and Perkins was coming in and somebody yelled at him and said, "How'd you do?" And I literally stuck my fingers in my ears because I didn't want to hear what Perkins had to say because I knew he was going to be like, "Oh, I only got 25."
Yeah, so, sandbagging.
Yeah, dude just catches them. I mean, he's a closer. He's won 3 of these now, so
yeah,
he knows how to get it done.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. You didn't catch a lot of the smaller fish, but a lot of these guys were catching 30 and 40 fish that were 14 and a half inch fish. What do you do? You're getting feedback. There's fish interested in whatever bait you're throwing, but obviously you're not catching the quality that you need. What kind of adjustment would you make in that situation? Because a lot of us go through that. We're like, we're catching fish, but they're just not. We want to catch bigger fish, especially in a tournament situation. So how do you adapt to that? Do you just keep going through the fish, like say 1 keeper per 30 fish, or do you try to make some adjustments?
I guess that would have to depend. That would have to depend on the lake. If it's a lake where you just got to catch 30 to get a keeper, you wade through them. That's fine. The first day I did some flipping. I think I went through like 4 or 5 packs of these catch and call beaver bugs. It's a local guy around here that sponsors me, and he gave me a little bug, and I actually went through them, and then ended up having to use a Strike King because I ran out. But I think that first day I probably had 30 bites on that thing. It was just tearing it up when we, it been just a ton of 14 and a quarter, 14 and a half, stuff like that, and then, but to answer your question, on a lake like that, I don't know. I think I would probably have to move faster. If no live scope was involved and I couldn't see the size of the fish that I was targeting, I would say probably bigger baits or just pick up baits that generally produce a bigger bite. I mean, if you're just flipping, say you're throwing an LBJ, a little brown jig, and you're doing nothing but catching 14, 14, 14, I don't know, maybe adjust up to like a 3/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce football jig that's more bulky and bigger and falling faster and get more of a reaction bite where something like that might get after it. In this instance, I picked up the Glide, and I probably, for every one that bit it, I probably had 10 follows, that come out and would nip at it or come out and just push it. Uh, and then, of course, I mean, obviously the buzzbait was whatever I got my biggest bait on. That'd be the one thing that I probably really would keep in my hand and try to lock down and throw. I knew when we got there. So the first morning I went out to practice, I had 1 plopper on the deck and 7 buzzbaits.
You had 7 buzzbaits?
7 different brands of buzzbaits, and I had everything from a Picasso double buzz to that Mega Bass boa, one that I make. The Rowdy Buzz is what I caught them on with the toad on it, and Crock Gator. I know that's a super popular buzzbait in that country. But yeah, I had multiple buzzbaits on all my rods. I mean, I had a couple people that were making fun of me when they seen my deck because it was like, 1 plopper and then all that. I think I had a plopper, a spook, and then all them buzzbaits, and it was like, really? And they're like, so you're going to throw topwaters? I was like, yep.
That's hilarious. I've never heard of somebody having like 7 buzzbaits tied on. That's awesome, man. But that's what it takes. Because sometimes they show a preference for one or the other.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, trust me, there's guys that I talk to throughout the course of the days that during the tournament, they're like, how are you getting to eat it? I can't get a bite. And told them what I was doing or kind of the buzzbait I was throwing and where I was throwing it. Because like I said, I started on docks and then moved my way back. And then they just happened to really show up good back there. And it was just, right place at the right time. If I wouldn't have got that first 4 6 back there, I probably wouldn't have fished the rest of it. I'd have fished 1 or 2 of them logs and left, and my weekend would have went a whole lot different. So,
yeah, here's a question that pertains to that from Brock. Let me pull it up here. He says, for a lake that's 96 miles long, he's been fishing it for 35 years. How do you determine at Lake of the Ozarks what 10 miles of the lake have the best bites without dock talk?
Without dock talk, yeah, because we can't talk about anything. Man, mine was water temperature and watercolor. I didn't want anything to do with the turnover. And when I started around that Shawnee Bend area, there was them, chunks of stuff that had popped up off the bottom, and there was that brown scum, and that turned me off pretty quick. I went all the way up there to put in at that upper end up there at the grab hoist by the bridge, and got bit right away, right there by the dock. I mean, I literally put the trolling motor down and fished down a little stretch there that had some trash and wood and stuff floated up on it, and got bit, and some short fish. And as soon as I put the boat in the water, I noticed that the temperature was like 64 or 65 up there. And then I just covered water up there, and I went up that left arm first and went all the way up in the creek up in there, clear up in the channel, probably up there till the boat wouldn't float. And the water temperature kept getting colder and colder and colder, and I got more and more and more bites that committed, but they were smaller. And then I turned around and went up that other arm over there, and it was the same thing. But when I went up on them logs up there, I was just flipping them, and they were carrying my bait off, and then of course I hit that one stretch that first thing in the morning that I got all them bites off of, and I kind of hung my hat on that. And if I was going to go back again and I was going to cover more water, I would say if I was going to suggest to somebody going up there and they had a short period of time to practice, I wouldn't try and. If you had 2 days to practice, I wouldn't go, okay, I'm going to go up the Osage today, and then tomorrow I'm going to go up the Gravois, or tomorrow I'm going to go down by the dam, or tomorrow I'm going to go to Lynn Creek, and then I'm going to go down by the dam. I think you can mess yourself up by spreading yourself out like that. I think you're always better off if you've got just 1 or 2 days of good practice or a good solid day to just keep the trolling motor in the water and look for the stuff that is the fishiest looking. And like I told a couple other, fellow anglers up there, there's 700 guys a weekend up there fishing that thing everywhere you go. By looking at some of the live coverage, you can tell, what our guys were doing. But the harder the cast and the least possibility of getting a fish into the boat, the higher the chances of getting a bite was. So I know all those guys up there. I know there's some hardcore guys that know to get in there and fish along the cables and skip under the docks and fish some little pillars that hold the walkways up and all that stuff. But I think the I think the keys on that lake is getting to the places that 90% of the guys aren't going to mess with because they don't want to scratch their boat. It was a miracle that I did not gouge my boat up there, in practice or during the tournament. I just knew I was going to tear it up on one of the dock corners. So
yeah, I mean, you think about it. You bring up a good point. So 50% of the people, and I'm just gonna free ball some numbers out there. I don't know for sure, but Ken Duke probably know. But 50% of the people that fish docks are just gonna fish the fronts, the outsides, corners, and maybe throw down the sides. Okay. Yep. And then there's going to be another 20% that might flip the stalls especially the open stalls, and still might not get back in the crevices. And then there's going to be another 20% that are pretty good at skipping something and pitching, and they'll get up in some darker stuff. They may only get 3 feet back into the darkness. But then there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be another 10% that actually are not scared to throw their stuff way, way up in there and hook a fish and worry about getting it out of there. So, I think you nailed it right there.
You can't be scared. Yeah, you can't be scared no matter where you're at, whether you're at Timber Lakes or whether you're up there around the dock cables or whatever you're doing. I don't think you can be scared to lose your bait or lose a fish. You got to get the bite to land first. You don't know what's going to happen. You got to do the best you can do. I've one of my best friends I've team fished with for over 20 years. He taught me to flip. He taught me to do stuff. And when I was younger and I was fishing with him, I used to tie a buzzbait on. I would throw that thing over top of like 9 laydowns and over bushes, and I'd get a bite back there. And he's like, "What are you going to do if you get a bite?" I'm like, "Well, don't matter. I got to get the bite first." And then I would hook up and I would pull the fish over the logs and everything. And he's like, then I'd get into the boat and he'd look at me and we'd laugh, and it was just like, well, I guess that worked out, and that a lot of crazy fishing stories that, just how we got to fish and how we had to retrieve fish and stuff before. But I think you got to work at them a little bit. I mean, I caught a number of fish in practice that were like, you got the backside of the dock and you got the walkway, and a lot of times the walkway would have a float that was like 2 feet from the dock, the first float on the walk. And they would be between the dock and that first float back there. And you'd have to pitch in that hole or skip your bait up underneath that hole. And then, I mean, it wouldn't make it out of there. They would eat it. A lot of times the plopper or that buzzbait wouldn't even get a turn on the blade and they would crush it. So it's pretty wild. You just, you just invaded their space, kind of spooked them, and out of reaction, they come after you.
Yeah. And they're not seeing, I mean, there's plenty of people that go and fish the backs of docks for sure. But I'd say they get the least amount of pressure, the ones that are on the backs of the docks. And then those docks that are way back in a bay or back in a cove where you're like, man, I don't know if I want to put my trolling motor on and go all the way back there. It's going to take 2 minutes to get back there, and I'm going to make 2 casts, and then I got to come all the way out. Those kind of spots. That would be
water temperature. That would be time of year, and that would be if there was a channel. I mean, if there was like a channel swing at the mouth of the drain that you're fishing or the pocket. I mean, we call them drains down here. So every one of these little pockets you guys have, you guys call them pockets. We call them drains.
Okay.
But any one of them little drains or little pockets that had a channel swing that came up close to it where the big fish could come up there right away. I mean, they move up just instantly. I mean, I don't think it really matters. My camera guy asked me something about, he said, do you ever think that glide's too big? That's why they just follow it, don't eat it. And I told him, I said, I had an old boy tell me one time when I asked him the same question, he said, fish ain't got no mirrors. They don't know how big they are. So, and the amount of 10-inch fish that I catch on a 6-inch glide is, I was throwing that Scottsboro glide up there, that new one that he makes. And the amount of 10-inch fish that would come up or just try to eat the whole thing was pretty unreal.
That's funny. I never heard that. I mean, it makes sense. Fish have no idea. They only know by the size of their mouth. They can either get it in their mouth or they can't, Yeah,
they're gonna try. You see stories all the time of fish that got something jammed in their mouth. They have no business, a turtle or another fish or whatever. It's like, what were they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, you automatically assume when you fish a 12-inch worm that you're going to catch a 2-pound bass, but you can get at least a 2-pound bass. But I've caught plenty of like 12-inch fish on a big old worm or something that you would think only a big fish would bite. You mentioned turnover, like fishing fall turnover.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if you see that nastiness, you just get out of the area. Is that kind of the
I
way
never,
you
I
feel?
never, I never fish anywhere that the turnover's happening. And for the guys that are running forward-facing sonar, you can see the bubbles on the sonar coming off the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, you if you got it dialed in right, you can literally see it. So when that water's turning over, then clumps and stuff are coming up. You'll just notice the life is not the same back there. You know, the amount of shad's not the same. The fish popping around on the surface is not the same. It won't smell the same. The water may be like that steel color, you know, instead of, you know, that kind of turning that brown, almost swampy, just for whatever reason. It's like, and then you can move away from it a little bit. Maybe sometimes you don't even have to leave the pocket. It may be just happening in the back and the fish are just halfway out. So you don't always have to just pack up and leave the whole area of the lake. But for me, you know, I got down there by the dam, which I thought would be the last place to turn over. And I went in a couple creeks down there, and all I seen was like that brown scum and stuff on the water. And I was like, I just didn't feel comfortable fishing in that. And then all that up there where I was fishing was that just nice, pretty green. And, you know, it just looked good to me. It didn't look, you know, stagnant or like it'd been cooking all summer back there. So.
Yeah, if you got options, get the heck out of there and go find something that's better.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to deal with it. So you think they probably still stay in the area? They might move out a little bit, but they don't just.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
they
got to
just.
swim like
I think.
2 miles
Yeah,
away.
I think they just move around until everything. You know, everything does a big flip flop until everything kind of gets balanced out, and you know the oxygen and the pH and the acidity and all that stuff kind of gets, you know, whatever all goes into that. I mean, there's guys out there who know a lot more about that than I probably do. I just know that when I see it, I ain't gonna fish in it. You come down here to Lake Fork and you fish in the turnover, you're wasting your time, Jack. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Don't matter how good you caught them the day before, they're not going to bite. It's ridiculously
No.
tough.
No, and it can happen overnight too. And yeah, yeah, I just try and stay clear of it. And I was really surprised, and after the tournament was over, the amount of guys that caught them, you know, on main lake stuff and stuff too, which was, I think most of them were fishing, you know, channel swings and stuff out there too that swung in against the bank that caught some of the bigger ones. But a lot of fresh fish moving up. I think in the next 2 weeks up there when that water temperature drops, that place is probably going to be on fire. There's 8 tournaments coming up. There ought to be some big bags caught.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I think you're right. I think we're right there where things are going to just start getting really good and continue through the rest of the winter. Here's a question from Brad. This isn't like NPFL related, but it is something that kind of applies to me since I fished as a co-angler in the BFLs. Brad says, what do you guys think about the MLF changing the co-side to a 3-fish limit and the 6 new regionals? Brad, to be honest, I kind of liked how they did it before. So in the summertime, they would go from a 5-fish to a 3-fish limit because the water temperature was up in the 80s, sometimes in the low 90s, especially on Kentucky Lake. Kentucky Lake is doing a whole lot better than it was 4 or 5 years ago, but that's because a lot of the tournament pressure wasn't on there. You know, I think you had the Asian carp, they were eating the zooplankton, and that's what the shad eat. So the shad went away, the grass went away, and then you had several unsuccessful spawns over the course of 5-6 years. So you had kind of a void in the bass population. Then you had the Asian carp, and you had the shad depletion and the grass taken away. So that caused people to schedule tournaments elsewhere. None of the big, you know, the big organizations weren't coming there. You didn't see the Toyota Series. You didn't see the Opens or any of these guys coming, NPFL, anybody, name it. They weren't there because the fishing was horrible. I mean, it got to the point where I know people that sold their trailers down there. They'd lived there for like 20 years and they got tired of going out and not even getting a bite. And they know where the fish are supposed to be at. So Kentucky Lake is coming back and it's pretty healthy right now. But if you have too many tournaments and you kill too many fish, you're going to see a decline again. Just my opinion. But so that's why I always applauded, like during the summer, they went to a 3-fish creel. So I kind of like that, but to have 3 fish all the way across the board, I know that's how the Opens have done it. They've always had the coast can keep 3, the boaters can keep 5. I think it does bring, it's not really an element of luck, but there's going to be a lot of instances where, say I go out and I catch 5 keepers for 12 pounds and then somebody else, and maybe I catch 7 keepers, and my best 5 weigh 12 pounds, and then there'll be somebody that catches 3 and his weigh 13, but he only caught 3 keepers. Or, just kind of do the math. Somebody's locked in and dialed in on a pattern, and they're catching a lot of keepers, and then another person beats
the guy that catches the most weight is going to be the guy that catches the most weight. It doesn't matter. It's just like us up there at Lake of the Ozarks. We couldn't weigh any spotted bass. Everything had to be 15 inches and bigger. And a lot of guys are like, man, I could have had a limit every day if we could have just weighed spots. But still, the guys that had the largemouth still would have excelled. I mean, I caught spotted bass up to 14 and a half, pushing 15 inches. So, I mean, so what's the rules on the BFLs this year? So are they allowed live scope? Are they killing it for them? What's the deal?
It's staying the same. It's staying the same. They didn't change any forward facing sonar. The changes that they made was they went from 6 regionals to 12 regionals. And then they used to be the top 45 qualified for the regional, top 45 in points. And then anyone who won, kind of a win you're in. So there'd be 50 people, 5 that won the tournaments, and then 45 that qualified through points. Well, they moved that from 45 to 65. So there's going to be 65 people from each division qualify for the regional, but there's only going to be 2 divisions at each regional. So you're still going to have, full field's going to be 130 boaters and 130 co's in a regional, but there's 6 regional or 12 regionals. And instead of taking 6 All-American spots from each regional, they're going to take 3. So it's going to be a little tougher probably to qualify for the All-American. And then the other change was 3 fish per co-angler. They moved it from 5 fish to 3 fish.
So how many co-anglers are you seeing with portable?
I haven't seen any, but I've heard. I know in the opens they've done it, and in the Toyota series, I haven't seen any me personally in the LBL or the Ozark division. But I know there is some in the Ozark division.
I mean, I think that'd be really tough being a co-angler and drawing out guys that are just thinking minnows or whatever all day and have to sit in the back and just randomly cast and throw out there. Now, I've been in that position before, and I've been in the front of the boat and been drop shotting fish off of standing timber or whatever, and the guy in the back of the boat not have a clue. But I usually tell him in the morning, hey, just be patient with me. As soon as we get this, we'll run and get you 3. So cool. Whether that be I scope over there and tell him where to throw, and and turn my graph on the back so he can see. But most of the time, if they're patient and they give me the day to catch my fish, I'll scratch out some time to help them out or try and put them on some fish. But a lot of guys don't do that. But I've been in both instances. I've been in the back of the boat and the front, so I kind of feel for the guys that are in the back a little bit. I don't know if I was in the back of the boat if I could not have a portable unit. I know that would be a pain, and you'd probably be every boater's nightmare. But geez, you could walk away with. So you could probably make some serious money.
I haven't seriously. I've thought about it slightly, but I haven't looked into how to make it. But gosh, it would be nice. It would be a little bit of a pain.
I think they're already making ice. I think like Garmin's already making ice fishing setups like that. So
yeah,
well, you don't need much of the battery and stuff for it. But I don't know how a lot of those guys react. Some of them probably be all bent out of shape, but I don't know how you could be as long as it didn't slow them down or impale it. You literally would. If I was doing that, I'd literally have a handful of baits in my pocket and like one rod. I would not want anything else to be in my boater's way. To you still can't bring tackle bags and 5 rods and all that. You're going to have to, if that's the road you chose to go on. I think you would have to just hang your hat on it and skinny way down and just tell the boater, give me 30 seconds, give me 1 cast heads up, and I will have my stuff.
Exactly. That's that. I mean, that's what I do. I can get my life vest on and be sitting down most instances within a minute. So as long as my boater tells me, hey, 1 more cast or we're getting ready to move. But yeah, all you bring 3 spinning rods. You throw a jig head minnow, a drop shot, and a Nico rig probably. And just put that all day long. You'll be fine.
Put your replacement baits in your pocket, and that's all you take. We used to have a long time ago in our bass club. We used to have one of them that I first joined. We used to have a guy in there that was pretty wiry, and he brought his own Lowrance, the old original color versions. And he had suction cup set up. He put the transducer on the back of the boat so he knew the depth. And it used to always be funny because you could tell who he fished with because he always had these suction cup marks on the sides of everybody's boats where he took that suction cup on the side of their boat.
Little like a hickey.
Yeah, like a hickey, but nobody, you know what? Nobody was ever mad at it. He had a nicer graph than some of the boats had that were in the club, but man, he was all about it. He if he was offshore or something, he wanted to know what he was looking at and what he was going over, and he did good. So,
Oh, if I had a scope, if I had a co-angler scope, there's several tournaments where I know I could have done really, really good because that's how we were fishing.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
but like you said,
you'd have to be conscious of that too. I think that you didn't, if they were running a comparative brand or something, because I know if you get a Garmin and you get too close to a Lowrance guy, you can wash out his screen, and or vice versa. So you'd have to be pretty cognizant of that you didn't turn it
I'm
on.
waiting for him. I'm waiting for him to come out with jammers, like scope jammers. If you got like 5 people fishing the ledge, somebody's jamming everybody's, signal, and then they got the whole ledge to themselves. Or they
Yeah.
put like a fake image on the other person's screen where it looks like they're actually casting the fish. There's no fish out there at all. They're casting like holograms. And they're like,
Yeah.
what's going on with these fish? I can't get them to bite. They're not even looking at my stuff.
Yeah, can't see their bait or anything. Yeah, I don't know about that BFL stuff and catching. I don't see anything wrong with 3 fish because if you're catching a bigger fish, you're still going to win. I don't think if you catch 5 12-inchers and somebody catches 3 15s, you're going to beat them. I think they're still going to get you. So, I don't know if it's a numbers game or. So what I do like, One Bass out west for like the U.S. Open, all their tournaments, the pro and the co, they share their 5 fish. So if a co catches, say like you pair up with me and you catch a 5, it goes in my bag. But I went out there and fished it, and I honestly tell you what, it was pretty neat watching the guys fish, because all of them were helping their co-anglers, and I was doing the same thing. I'm like, hey, dude, cast right there, right there's the juice, that's where the fish are, and I think it helps the co-anglers, and I think it gives a pretty good chance, and because most of that's luck of the draw anyway, because you're drawing out somebody random that you don't know. But it's kind of like fishing a team tournament with somebody you never met before in your life. So I think the co-anglers pick up a lot from that, and I think that the boaters can win some, or learn some stuff from the coves too.
Yeah, definitely. I've always, I typically will ask my boater especially for fishing someplace like Table Rock or, say Bull Shoals or Del Hollow, someplace where you're really stuck out in the middle of nowhere. Kentucky Lake, a lot of times the guys are moving really fast and they're fishing individual pieces of cover, but you're usually on a bar. And so there is a snowball's chance in hell that you may come across the fish, possibly. A lot of times it doesn't happen, but when you're out in like 80, 90, 100 feet of water, you really feel like you're in the middle of the desert. But I've always asked the guy, hey, how deep are the bait? How deep are the fish, and how deep is the bait that you're seeing? They're 30 feet down. Well, then I'm going to start counting my stuff down to 30 feet. And at least that gives me something to focus on. I'm not saying I'm going to get a single bite, but it's, I don't know. It is what it is. It's the world that we live in. And, we just got to adapt. But it's cool that you help, that you help the guys out sometimes. I always pray that my boater gets 30 pounds in the boat as soon as possible.
Right. Well, so here's the thing though. You think about this. How long are the co-anglers going to last, and how much longer are they going to show up if
I know
they're just stuck out there in limbo all the time? That's not what they're there for. They're there to have fun and catch some fish and maybe make a little bit of money, or qualify for a championship or a regional at the end of the year. And it takes all year to do that, and a couple $1,000 in the BFLs with travel and stuff, to do that, maybe $1,000 a tournament in some cases, depending on how far you're going. But you can only do so much of that stuff, and for the co-anglers to leave. So if their experience isn't good, whether they draw somebody that's a really good fisherman, or draw somebody that'll help them, then if they get mad and they leave and they don't come back, how much of that do you get before there is no more co-anglers, and now the circuit's done, because it's based off of angler co-anglers. So.
Yeah, here's an interesting story. I don't know that I've told this yet, but I fished the BFL regional on Pickwick. It was about 3 weeks ago. But my buddy, I was out practicing. I think I was actually might have been practicing with Brock. I jumped in the boat with Brock Bilo on like day 1 of practice or whatever. I can't remember who I was fishing with. I'm pretty sure it was Brock. But anyway, I got a call from my buddy, and he asked me, you know, what I was doing. He wasn't sure if I was down there yet or not. And I told him I'm practicing for this regional down here. And he had just got a call from Major League Fishing asking him if he wanted to come down and fish the regional. And my buddy Mike is like, he couldn't even remember if he fished a BFL this year. And we got to talking about it, and I said, yeah, you fished that one at Table Rock because, you know, the guy that you were staying with, he hit a stump and fell out of the boat, and he got all pissed off and went home or something. And he's like, that's right. Yeah, I did. So he only fished one BFL, and they called him to ask if he wanted to fish the regional. And day 2 of the tournament, I fished with Hunter Sells, and he was in the same kind of scenario. He got a last minute call, and he'd only fished, he'd fished one tournament in maybe the mountain division. I'm not sure exactly what division it was, but they called him, and since you guys weren't at St. John's, that St. John's tournament had canceled. I guess he was just kind of sitting around and doing nothing, but he packed up his stuff, and he ended up coming up there and fishing the tournament. But that's kind of, I don't know what that says about anything, because they weren't co-anglers, they were boaters, but there was boater on boater draws. And I think some people, maybe the fishing was so tough and some people went home, but some stuff was happening where it got to the point where they actually had to call people that had only fished one tournament in a division and come and, you know.
I've seen them do that down here too, where they call in, or they may even call in observers to make sure that all the boaters that signed up can fish, or they'll call in some guys and, you know, comp them their entry fee or whatever because they got too many codes and they're trying to get everybody in a boat. So, you know, they'll work with everybody to try and make that happen. But yeah, there's a lot of that goes on. I mean, it's just trying to get everybody on the water. They're trying to get as many entrants, you know, to cover championship money and stuff as they possibly can. So you can't blame them for that. I mean, none of us want to see anybody fall out of any of our fields. It just makes payouts, you know, and stuff decrease. And that's not the goal, is to keep everybody in there fishing. So
yeah. So why did you choose a buzz bait versus a plopper or like a walking style bait at Lake of the Ozarks?
They're a walking style bait. Never had a single fish touch it in practice. Had a few fish that ate a plopper in practice, but I hung my hat on the buzz bait, I think, because I mean, literally that lake is aerated by all the whopper ploppers in that thing. There was not a deck that I went by, a boat deck, that didn't have one or two whopper ploppers laying on the boat deck, and I'm like, nah, I'm going to do something different. So
yeah, that's a good call.
But a buzz bait's money in the fall. So not that a whopper plopper ain't, but a whopper plopper is not my favorite bait. I mean, I would choose a buzz bait. I would choose a spook or a frog over all of them, but you know, the buzz bait's probably my second or third choice. Whopper poppers, as far as top water baits, probably be my very last. I mean, I'd rather throw a jitterbug than a plopper.
Yeah,
just not my favorite. I don't know why. I just don't. It's just not my thing. But man, they catch fish. I know they do.
I think a buzzbait skips a little better than a plopper too.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to pull a fish on buzzbait over cables than it is a whopper plopper with 9 3/0 treble hooks hanging off the sides of it. So
yeah, you're right. That's a good call. I think
at least you know, pull them up to the cable and slide them right over it. You know, as long as the wire and the blade don't get hung up, I mean, the fish will just slip right up over the cable. So
yeah,
like you would on a jig.
Yeah, I just don't. You're right. Everybody's been throwing that whopper plopper down there for years and years, and it's kind of like a chatterbait and a spinnerbait. You know, the chatterbait got so popular that there's a little bit more of a window now for a spinnerbait in the right scenario, that because they're seeing a chatterbait so often. There's a lot of baits like that. There's a lot of baits that kind of people have started to forget about that are making a little like kind of a hush resurgence.
Yeah. I think I burned like 13 gallons of gas in practice. And a lot of that was just, you know, so I run that new Suzuki this year. I just, you know, started with Suzuki here in June, and the fuel economy on that thing has been freaking awesome. But, you know, like I said, I burned very little gas for the amount of water that I covered there. You know, I don't know what it's like, a 25-minute run or something up there from down there, but man, you guys have got some boats on that lake. Holy cow, the waves will sneak up on you there. I mean,
It's
I've been in some
insane.
rough water, but I mean, you could be tricking along real good. And you're thinking you can see everything, and okay, there's a boat going away from you, and everything's going good. And then all of a sudden, you got waves that are like crossways, and you're like doing this Humpty thing. The next thing you know, you're airborne.
Yeah, I know. You can not see a boat at all, and then here comes this rogue wave out of nowhere. You don't know where it came from, and
Yeah, it's like a wash machine.
it is. It's got to be one of the roughest lakes out there as far as
I don't. The people must have. I mean, whoever's got the dock building business up there must be like loaded because that dude's got to be constantly repairing docks
yeah,
on that
especially
place.
out there on that main drag,
Yeah.
around those bluffs and stuff. Those docks are just getting hammered. And it's like there's docks that are 20 times the price of my house, just docks. I mean, I'm always amazed at how many multi-million-dollar homes are on Lake of the Ozarks. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, that's not even their residence.
No, and so here's a story. Me and my buddy Mike fished down there in the winter, and he was talking. He was fishing some really nice house, and he got to talking to this guy that was out there on the dock, and he thought it was the homeowner. And long story short, this guy was just like a maintenance guy, and this house was unbelievably huge, and the people hadn't been there all year, and he was just coming down to check on it. And it was kind of like who knows, their second, third, fourth home. But a lot of those houses in the winter, you'll see that nobody's there at all. They're just like summer homes, or people will just come down for a few weeks here and there. And it's just amazing that, I mean, good for those people that have those that can afford it, but it's just amazing that there's that much money that comes on Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, I mean taxes, upkeep, just the regular bills that come with the house, and holy cow, it's there's some absolute there's some beautiful homes down. I'm a custom home builder by trade. I build houses, and that's what I do when I'm not fishing. And
so you're really checking those houses out. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, man, that one right there would take me about a year and a half, and that would be, they're being up there on the side of the hill to build those things, and what it takes to build one. They're charging triple what I charge to build one on the flat ground down here.
Yeah, exactly.
Carve
Getting
out the side of the
materials
mountain. Yeah, holy cow.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of unique houses too. It's not like they're all like cookie cutter houses. They're each. I'm not going to say each one, but there's most of them have their own kind of style to them.
Yeah, to be honest with you, you don't see anything down there that looks the same. Everything is anywhere from looks like somebody moved in a tough shed and modified it into a house to multi-million-dollar, mansions to, if it ain't that, it's resorts. You know what I mean? Just towering deals of resorts, which I'm sure are probably like all shared condos or something up there.
Yeah. What you guys didn't fish the St. John's because the hurricane and all that stuff. And then they were talking about it one time having this Lake of the Ozarks like a double tournament, like double points and double the payback and stuff. How did that all?
Yeah, well, we got ran off on the second day. We got ran off down there. I guess on the last day of practice, about 9:30 in the morning. We kind of had a feeling that it was coming because we got a message put out from NPFL to us and said they were going to have a meeting early in the morning, and they got us out of there, which was a good call on their part, and got us home. And I think they were trying to salvage the season without a lot of extra expense for everybody. To not have to go back, and I think they were thinking about doing maybe some kind of, you can't quote me on it, but maybe some kind of double entry, paying out down the field, some money back to us. I'm not real sure how they were going to do it. That was a little bit of scuttlebutt, and then I think there's a few anglers that were super close in points that wanted to fish that sixth tournament because they want to try and make the championship. So with that being said, it came down. We had a Zoom meeting. We got on there and we were told, we're going to go back to Florida. We're going to make it happen. Then they got hit by the second hurricane, and they come through there, and it just flooded everything. And right in the middle of this tournament, we got an announcement that they were moving us to Murray. They had a schedule change. DeLand really wanted us back down there. But I think that just with everything that was going on, and debris and stuff floating, it just wasn't safe. I mean, the water was, with the big moon and everything, was having trouble receding. I think a lot of the rental properties and stuff, I imagine, were probably filled with people that got ran out of their houses. So
Yeah, that's
I,
true. That's true.
yeah, I think it was probably a good call to make us go back. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know how many of these guys have been on Murray in December, but I mean, we're literally going to be like wrapping up the week before Christmas. So
That's cool.
I mean, we could go down there when they're getting fat and producing eggs and eating, and it could be a smash fest. It might be really fun. So
I like it.
I don't care. I don't care either way. I don't care either way. I'm going.
Yeah, I like it because there's this lull of live fishing. I mean, other than like MLF has the team tournament stuff now that they're doing, which has extended it, into like October and November. But normally, right now, it's like you get like your fix of tournament live footage from like March all the way to September or something, and then it's gone, and you're like kind of Jones, and you're like, I want to see some live footage. So we'll have this NPFL tournament to look forward to at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be pretty cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm anxious to see what happens. There's some guys that live down there, and we got some winners from the NPFL that live there really close too. So I think Patrick won there this spring in an Elite Series event. So
yeah,
so
he'll be pretty good down there.
Yeah, he'll be pretty salty to deal with down there on that place, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I think it may play to. I mean, you may be able to go down there and do anything. It may play to everybody's strengths. There may be some good topwater fishing. There might be some scoping going on. There might be some chatterbaiting and stuff. And flipping. I don't know for sure. It's going to be. I think it's all going to be depending on water temperature and lake levels, things like that. So I don't know if they keep that thing stable. I haven't really even looked into it yet. I've never been there and I haven't even really checked it out. I honestly couldn't tell you the dates other than I know I think it's like the 8th through the 13th or something. We're supposed to be there right about that time.
I wonder what the weather will be like. There's no telling, but do they get like what's a typical winter down there like? I don't know.
I don't know, man. That's over there. That's pretty close to the East Coast. I don't think it probably gets too terrible cold. I bet you it's. I mean, it might be cool, but I don't know if they. I don't think that they get.
Like
I can't
snow.
imagine being much different in Texas up here, where we get down in the 40s and stuff, but and we'll get occasional 30, and every once in a while we'll get a apocalypse, and we'll have a snowflake fall out of the sky, and the whole world will shut down here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you guys had they had an ice storm there that a couple years ago though. Somewhere down
no,
there. Like
dude, it was bad. You thought the world was coming to an end. Yep. It was bad. There's people out on the street with cardboard signs, and and they thought they thought it was over. So
yeah, you couldn't find like an MRE or a ration or anything that had to do with like doomsday.
Oh, you could not. Oh, the stores were empty. The gas was empty. And it's kind of weird to say, but down here, it's so flat down here. A lot of the trucks that they sell, like the dealerships and stuff down here, and the people have are all 2-wheel drive. They're not even 4-wheel drive.
Oh, okay.
The fishermen and the hunters and stuff will buy 4-wheel trucks, but a lot of these people couldn't get around. I mean, it was nothing but Facebook messages. If we need food or we need some help getting pulled out or whatever, and I ran around. I had tire chains. I used to do some guiding and elk hunting and stuff like that in Colorado, and at the time I had a Tundra that was lifted with chains and a winch and all that, and I was out all over the country, just taking people propane bottles. There was no heat, there was no power. Yeah, it was pretty serious. But I don't know if it gets like that down there or not. I wouldn't even venture to guess. I mean, I know they fish Lake Lanier and stuff all winter, so and I can't imagine it. It's got to be probably even nicer there than it is at Lanier. So,
yeah. In all fairness, like ice, it almost doesn't matter what you're driving. Like it's super dangerous. We've had some pretty bad ice storms around here, and you can have the biggest, baddest 4-wheel drive truck, and maybe if you got chains and studded tires, but if you're just like normal stuff that most people drive, ice kind of neutralizes all that. It's super scary.
we have no salt trucks and no plows here. When I say none, I mean
you're screwed.
They close everything down and they shut all the businesses down, and then when it melts, we'll go back to normal operations. But other than that, they don't even invest in it. It just doesn't exist.
They just hit pause. Everybody just has to
Yeah.
pause for a couple of days.
Yeah, you're done. You ain't working. It's over.
I think it's crazy out west, like in we go to Colorado quite a bit, and you get up there in the Rocky Mountains, and you see those along the road. You'll see those, especially if you go in the fall. You'll see these big sticks that are like 6 foot tall, and they'll have orange paint on the top of them, and they're along the side of the road. That's so the snow plows
for the winter snow levels.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, the snow really gets that tall up there, but they get 6, 7, 8 feet of snow up there. It's insane.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and the snow guy, you don't have much room for error if you're the snowplow guy. I mean, if your tire goes off of the road, it could be like 1,000-foot drop down there, and it's game over. So you got to really pay attention to those sticks that are there.
Any of them other guys on there got any questions? I see you reading stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of just a statement, but it's true. It's funny how there's no wake signs within 100 feet of the dock, but the waves are from the boats that are 500 feet away. Yeah. Just because you got a sign don't mean your dock's not going to get crushed by waves.
I know. One of my roommates says, "Hey man, can you run around down here? Or what's the no wake setup? Are they at the mouth of the creeks and you got to idle all these?" And I said, "No, dude." I said, they like line the complete entire cove with no wake buoys. I said, you can run right next to them all the way around. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I said, no, it don't. You'd think that they put a line of them out there across. And then, of course, they got some that are no anchoring, no partying or whatever. They don't want them anchored out there in the center. It's just like a buoy with a circle on it. So there's a bunch of guys that were confused. They're like, are we allowed to go in those coves?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a little bit different. You got to follow up on your Missouri regulations to know where you can and can't go on that place.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out. And there's still some spots I'm not quite sure, but you see those. It's the no wakes that come all the way across the mountain, the cove, like halfway back. A lot of times, that's when you got to slow down. But the side stuff is just so you don't run, 50 feet from their dock or whatever, and knock everything off of their dock. Yeah. Anybody out there got any questions? I got a couple questions though. Before we wrap this up, what were some of your key baits this year with the NPFL? Like some
for
of the
the
baits
whole season, or
just kind of, is there like 3 or 5 baits that seem like you caught fish on all year long, or is it lake specific? Or
I think everything is lake and season specific. Top waters have been pretty strong for me all season. At Hartwell and stuff down there, the top water bait or bite was strong with schooling fish and Pickwick, a Cinco like on a flicket head. That was super strong for me. On the last day, had a horrible tournament there. Caught my big bag came on a Cinco at Amistad on that little flicket head. That Yamamoto Cinco on that little Buckeye Lures, the GSM makes that little flicket head that they make. I believe I caught fish that I weighed in every single derby all across the United States this entire season. That's actually that and a frog is what I was going to hang my hat on in DeLand, Florida too. They were biting it there too, and I knew I wasn't going to win down there, but I knew I could possibly hang in and get a check down there. I felt pretty good about what I was catching down there, but that Cinco and flicket head was super good. Logan Martin this year, that was a shad wrap thing for me. Caught some fish there on that Cinco too. I bet I've gone through like 400 or 500 packs of watermelon black Cincos this year. I don't know what it is, man, but they bite that thing everywhere. It doesn't matter if we were up in Michigan or down here. They just they eat it. I mean, a Cinco's no secret to anybody, but it's the dumbest bait in the world, but they eat it every lake you go to. I mean, you can't. If I was just a fisherman or I was a new co-angler or something, I mean, I would not fish without that thing being tied on. I think you're making a mistake. So,
oh yeah, I'd put it Texas rig it and then put it on a shaky head, and if you're fishing shallow, skip it on a wacky rig, and you're gonna catch fish on it for sure. There's no doubt about it. Deadly bait. Anytime I'm struggling and I really want to get some bites, I'll wacky rig a Cinco and just start throwing around shallow cover, and you're going to get something. It might be a dang bluegill, but something pick it up and swim off with it and wake you up.
Yeah, you get a little bit of activity out of it, and get something going.
Key colors during the fall. Let's see.
Depends if it's cloudy or sunny, and whether I'm going to throw black or throw something that's light or bone or shad colors. You can't ever go wrong with a bone color anything, top water or chrome in the fall.
Okay, here's a question for you. You probably fish a frog a lot, and obviously you fish a buzzbait a lot. Do you think black or white is a better color in the fall, like for a frog or for a buzzbait, or do you have to throw them both and figure it out?
If it's a buzzbait, it's
like,
black.
Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm throwing a buzzbait in the fall, it's
black.
99% of the time it's gonna be black, but if they're not quite getting it, and maybe it's cloudy with a really light sky or a dark sky, I might switch up to white just so that they can hone in on the bait better. I only throw one frog. I know that probably sounds silly, but I throw a white and a brown back frog, a live target frog, the medium sized one that they throw or that they make, and I've caught fish everywhere in every condition, whether it's a shad spawn or spawning fish or in the fall or in the pads. I got confidence in that frog, and I throw it all the time. And the only time I switch to black in that, it's the same scenario. If it's like super cheesy, and thick, that mossy stuff all gathered up and they're just having trouble honing in on it, then I might switch to a black one. But for the most part,
white belly. It's a white
belly.
White belly.
Yeah, white belly, brown back. I think once you get confidence in something, that is 99% of what you need to do. So if you got confidence in it, you need to throw it. So
yeah,
I see stuff on these guys' decks of their boats. It's like, God, it's a good looking bait, but I would never throw it just because I just look at it and I'm like, ew, I wouldn't throw that. I'm not going to catch any fish on something like that. I won't do it just because most of my stuff, I got the same stuff tied on all year. You get confidence in it, and you roll with it, and you make little small adjustments to the forage and to what the fish are doing, whether they're pushing it or whether they're choking it or whether they're, how they're getting the bait. You could tell how they get a jerk bait. You could tell how they get a crankbait. If you're just catching them by the back hook on the tip, that tells you how to fish it. The fish will tell you what you need to do, all the time. If you just pay attention to it. You catch two fish and say it's on a rock crawler and they're both hooked with one little hook in the back. You either need to change up color a little bit or maybe slow it down or maybe speed it up. So, to make them get it better instead of just nipping at it. So that's
a couple fish is all you need really to make an adjustment.
Yeah. One or two fish will give you that. Once you get it where the fish have got it in their mouth, you've got it figured out. Just roll with it and don't be changing. Even if you go back through an area and don't get bit, don't worry about it. Move on. Cover more water and try and catch them. These guys, they're like the guys with us that scope. These guys don't take their foot off the gas. They go, they roll, they put their head down, they roll. They don't catch any in a 10, 15 minute period. They pick it up and they head to the next spot. But nobody, all these guys that are good at it, Trent Palmer, Brock Beal's good at it. And a lot of the younger guys are good at it. Will Harkins is good at it. And they put their head down and they roll through an area and they catch them as quick as they can. And if they're not, they're not being productive, they roll on. So
yeah, that's why those crappie breaks or those breaks have been so important, because you can just stop on a dime.
Yeah,
you can go 2 or 3 miles an hour and then stop instead of blowing over your fish when you find them.
Yeah. I haven't tried them. I got some friends that got them and they seem to like them, but I'm yet to see what's going to happen with them. I don't know if they'll end up letting everybody keep them or not. So
yeah, it's so he was talking about like a cloudy fall day. What's going to be some of your color choices?
Yeah. Cloudy fall day. Schooling fish, I'm still probably going to run like bone or chrome because I know that's what they're chasing is shad. That's my favorite. If I'm buzz baiting, it's still going to be black. Like I said, just unless they're short striking it or missing it, then I might, it depends if this, just think about it. If you're down there under the water and you're looking straight up and the clouds are super white and you're throwing white, your bait's going to blend in, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you throw black, they're going to see it. But if the clouds are dark and it's real overcast, like it's getting ready to storm, then a white one's going to show up. So, fish seeing the palettes of gray and black and white anyway. So anything white or chartreuse is going to really, it's going to stand out super good. So
I love white. I was gonna say,
yeah.
I love white, like right at dark. Like the last 30 minutes. If I'm throwing a frog or something or a toad,
Yeah.
Me personally, I have better luck with a white than I do a black. Most people say low light conditions black, but white seems to stand out better.
Yeah, I tell all the younger kids in the bass clubs and stuff that ask, and people that are on the water that ask and stuff all the time. And I don't think that it's, it used to be back in the day when you fished with the granddad, it's like, oh, there must not be biting today on the blue. We got to throw, green this week, and I don't ever think it's that. I think color is, to me, in my mind, color is more about, like I was talking about the crawler, about them nipping it or about them getting it. So if you're fishing in gin clear water, you might be wanting to throw a phantom craw. But you fish in dirty or cloudy water, you might want to throw a black crankbait or, a bright red one. So something that's got some contrast that makes it stand out. And that's the same thing I would do. But if it was in the fall, I mean, like the deck of buzz baits, I had one white one on and all the other 6 were black. So black's what I got confidence in. Black's what I'm going to throw. And unless they show me something different, they're completely missing it and I need to make an adjustment, then I'm going to change to white. So
yeah. If you've got 6 buzz baits tied on and they're black, that means you have confidence in that color for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you got a plastic bait that you tie on every time you go, and I guarantee you it's one color, and you've got more than that. You got more of that particular bait than any of the rest because you've caught more fish on it. And if it's not quite right, you'll make a little adjustment to it to, whether it's a heavier weight or a lighter weight, you'll start with the obvious first, and then the last thing you ever do is probably change the color. You'll do everything else first before you, even technique you'll change before you change color.
Oh yeah, 100%. We are going to do a giveaway here real quick before we shut this down. Let's see here. Get this sucker set up. All right. We are going to be giving away a $25 Baitworks gift card. Hashtag capital L, capital O, capital Z, since we've been talking about the LOZ tonight. We'll let that run for a couple minutes and then we'll draw a winner. Another question that I had for you was your 3 favorite fall patterns, like patterns that you look for when you're heading to either your local lake or a new lake. What are you looking for when you get out there in the fall time?
First and foremost is always going to be the schooling activity, busting fish.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be
my find good fish though, busting, right? Or do you find that? Do you find, like, it seems like a lot of time those fish are a little bit smaller fish. I mean, at least in our area, you're finding like 14 to 16 inch fish up there busting. I mean, maybe 6-7 pounders.
Yeah, and that's that'll be a determining factor too, where you're at and what you're seeing, and whether they're small fish schooling or whether they're big fish. You can go to Lake Lanier, pull into one pocket and they're all 12 inches long, and you go to the next pocket and they're all 5-pound spots.
That's true. Even around here, it's like that. Maybe not 5 pounders, but you'll see some like 14 inches schooling, and then right around the corner there'll be 3 pounders, 4 pounders.
Yeah, or you'll have just 1 or 2 mixed in, but that's going to be my utmost first pattern. And then second is probably going to be fishing some kind of top water on the banks or on the long tapering points and stuff like that to get some attention. And if I can't do it on those 2 things, I'm probably going to follow up with, chatterbait, spinnerbait, and last is always going to be that sink or a flipping technique. But the two strongest or 3 strongest patterns, I would have to say. I mean, that's a lot of that has to do with the lake. Like if I was going to Gunnersville, it would be, I mean, I'd tell you right now, I'd be punching or frogging or looking for schooling fish. That's what I would hang my hat on. Coming out here to Lake Fork, it would be probably live scoping schooler or live scoping floaters. I would be schooling, or might be up on the bank running a chatterbait or a buzzbait. I think a lot of that's just lake depending, fish size, time of year, fish species. You know, if I was going up north and it was smallmouth, it would be, I'd still be rocking a drop shot. So
yeah, that's a good answer. That's a real general question. I mean, there's so many applications to that.
Yeah.
Um,
Place, time, and species of fish that's your three patterns.
That's right. Do you start, like, if you're going to fish a creek, like a short creek, you know, you hear people like, some people say you should go all the way in the back and work your way out, or some people say you should start at the mouth and work your way in. What's your thoughts on that? This time of the year.
This time of year?
Yeah.
I think I think as soon as you roll into that creek, you're gonna see some kind of activity, some bait flipping or something that's gonna kind of give you an idea where to start. Or you're gonna idle back there and you're gonna run into something that's like, oh, that looks kind of juicy. I need to fish that, you know, whether it be a dock or a floating log, or, you know, a reef of tires or a stump, or just whatever trips your trigger. You know, channel swing. I guess water temperature stuff would be a variant on that too. Whether you started clear out at the front or went right straight to the back. I mean, if it's in the 50s, I'd probably go right to the back pretty fast. If it's in the mid 60s, I'd probably start on the first or secondary point and start there and then work my way in. I mean, because they're going to come up out of the deep water and hang first, and then, you know, start working their way in wherever the bait's at. So
yeah, it's just like a lot of things in fishing. It's kind of a feel, you just kind of got to feel it out. That's something I learned that each time I go fishing. There's like, I mean, there's some like subtle things that you should pay attention to, but it's not like Bassmaster Magazine. There's not like these hard rules that are like this every time you go out.
Them fish don't read the same book as we do. I think all you can do is do your best to put yourself in the best scenario. And if you're totally lost, I would scrap what you're doing and go someplace else and start over.
Throw a black buzzbait if you're lost.
Yeah, yeah, put a black buzzbait on.
Josh
if I told you the last time I had a big sack on a black buzzbait, you'd probably be like, "Really?" Because I think it's been like 5 years since I really hammered him on a buzz. Yeah, since I really just absolutely hammered him on a buzzbait.
You were just feeling it.
I just went up there with my mind made up. And you should never go to a lake or a tournament with your mind made up that I'm going to do this and this only, and this is how it's going to be won, because most of the time that'll kick you right in the teeth. So.
Oh yeah, that's words of wisdom right there. Josh asked, on that buzzbait, are you always rigging up an extra hook, like a trailer hook?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
You just deal with getting hung up a little bit, maybe. Like,
yeah, the buzzbait I was using was made by Rowdy Lures. You can get him at Tackle Warehouse. You can find the dude online. But he makes them. I think he's out of Indiana, I believe, or Pennsylvania. But he sells them around down here at Lake Fork. And I picked them up out of the store years ago and started using them. But I throw mine with a little. Of course, I put a horny toad on there, but then I use that Aaron Martin's Chief Finesse. He makes a trailer hook. You know, or he developed a trailer hook years ago, and that thing is super sticky and doesn't get tangled up in the legs. It's just the right length. I think it's the biggest one that they have of his, and I think it's like a 1/0. But every fish I had that hook buried up in them, and if it wasn't for that trailer hook, I wouldn't have probably landed, you know, all the fish that I landed on the buzzbait this week.
Yeah. Steve wants to know if you have several fish just swipe at a buzzbait, do you keep throwing it or put it down thinking they aren't interested in a buzzbait?
That would, if I had them just swiping or just nipping and they weren't getting it, I would probably, if they continue to miss it like that, I would probably change colors. If I was throwing a white, I would go to black. If I was black, I'd go to white. That'd be my first things. And the next thing I'd probably change and try a different buzzbait with a different sound, either more violent or quieter or squeakier.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're getting pretty aggressive bites and they act like they want it, but they're just not eating it, you know, you might try a skirt, you might try downsizing. Just, you know, you buy all those baits and you put them in a box for a reason, and that reason is so you've got options.
What about blades? Do you think color of blade makes a difference? Have you seen that ever make a difference?
I don't know. The one I was throwing had a black blade on it, but
yeah, I like black blades. I like gold
yeah, it's
blades.
the one I tried on. I think on sunny days, I think on the cloudy or overcast days, the black is good. And I think that gold is good on sunny days, but I also think it can also be a little too flashy at times. I think if the sound is right on the buzzbait, I don't think it matters. I think that thing could be hot pink or fluorescent orange. I really do. I think if the sound is right and they are not liking it, that's what it's all about. I think that's the key for most buzzbait fishing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So have you ever picked up one whopper plopper and had it and was just catching them like crazy or getting bites like crazy, and it just sounded so good and had that perfect plop plop to it, and then you threw it up against the rocks and broke it and had to grab another one out of the box and tie it on, and it might not have been the right color or it was the same color and it just didn't quite sound right. It was a little quieter or a little bit noisier and it just didn't get as many bites.
Yep. I haven't with the plopper, but I've done it with crankbait.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe had one that had rattles and then one that didn't, or one that had a little, was a little flatter and didn't have as much vibration, or one that was a little, had a little bit more of a wobble. But there's a lot to that. I mean, them fish hunt on sound, and they sure don't like being messed with. Even the minnow pingers out there. I mean, that's what they do. The guys that are looking at them on live scope, it's like sight fishing, but on a screen. So,
oh yeah, that's why there's 100 different minnow baits, and you're like, what does it matter? Just put one on and start throwing it. No, there's a lot more to it. It's an art form. There's just little subtle changes, and you don't know that until you spend thousands of hours doing it, and you're like,
it ain't. I can tell you right now, it ain't the bait that the guys are throwing; it's the guys that are throwing it.
That's amen to that. There's a lot of truth in that. Let's give this Baitworks gift card away here. Here we go. It's the most exciting part of the stream. The anticipation's killing me. Champion Boats community. Okay. Cool. Write that down. Champion Boats community.
That's a good old school boat.
Boy, it is. Good big water boat.
Yeah.
What was it? 210? That was the popular model, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad had a couple of those, and I remember riding in those things. Those things were awesome. That's really close to that. I just started running a Bass Cat, and it's been impressive. The riding that thing is a lot more.
What model do you have?
More related to Puma STS.
Okay, cool. Bass Champion Boats community. Get a hold of me on Facebook at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty, or 10 Horse Monty 6 on Instagram, and I'll get you taken care of tomorrow. I'll get you $25 digital Baitworks gift card heading your way. The Bass Cat's it's a unique platform. I fished out of several of them. That's what Brock's running. He's running a Bass Cat. No shortage of cup holders for sure. You're always gonna have a
like
water bottle. There's like 10 of them or whatever. It's pretty crazy. Let me look through this real quick and see if there's anything that I missed in case people have questions. So you got plans for the money?
I think. Yeah, I think, like I told everybody else, I said that money will be gone in a week or two. But the trophy stays and stuff. And that's great.
That's a cool trophy too, man. That's a legit trophy.
I know. I haven't even taken it out of my truck yet because everywhere I go, everybody asks to see it. I hate to take it out and disappoint somebody. But I took it out for like 5 minutes and I had to put it right back in because I went and took some pictures with it with another guy today, and And yeah, it's pretty neat. But the confidence of it, yeah, just being able, winning this thing and the confidence I got out of winning it that was a lot. I mean, I know I can catch fish, but to be able to catch them good enough is the question. That's always the doubt you have in your mind. So
yeah, you went through a lot. I mean, a lot of the anglers did in this tournament, but this wasn't like you were out on a ledge in a slugfest, like catching 30-pound bags. This was like a grinder tournament. I think is more impressive than a slugfest, because you're going a long time without getting a bite, and your mind's going, well, I mean, you made 3 rotations through that area without getting a bite, like we said earlier. Just to recap, most people would have bailed, and then they would have been spun out and they never would have won, but you were able to
every rotation up there, I'm like, okay, I'm giving it till this time, and then I'm going to go run docks with my glide or whatever, and I'm going to try and see if I can knock down a couple big ones and try not to lose any more ground than I've already lost. So it's hard. There's a lot of demons to fight when you're in that position.
Yeah. So I think that's quite an accomplishment. You said Rowdy Buzzbaits, is that right?
Yeah. Rowdy Buzzbaits, Rowdy Lures.
Okay. Yep, Rowdy Buzzbaits.
And then of course the glide is that Scottsboro Tackles new glide. So
okay, cool. Yeah. Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. If you could fish for 2 hours and throw one bait and they were going to smash it, any bait, time of year doesn't matter, you can just tie this bait on and you can go fishing for 2 hours and you're going to catch fish, what would that bait be?
Frog.
A frog with a white belly?
Yeah, with a white belly and brown back. Yeah, I would 100%. I mean, the hookup to loss on a frog is really small. I don't know what it is about the hooks and frogs, but you don't hear a lot of stories that when somebody's having a frog smash fest that how many they lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the guy's got the right equipment, you don't lose fish on a frog. So, and the opportunities to catch big fish. I mean, I've got several that I've caught over 10. I've caught over 10s and tournaments on a frog. So
dang.
To get that kind of bite during an event like down here on Fork, I think I had a couple tournaments that I had like a 9 and a 10 in back-to-back tournaments, and they were caught on a frog, and it was in like March. So had no business eating a frog, and mine's always tied on. I got 2 frog rods in my boat. I've always got a popping frog, and then I got that white belly, and I only throw the popping frog if it's a little wavy, if it's got a little bit of surface. Yeah, a little bit of chop. Other than that, it hardly ever comes out of the box. So then I got guys down here that are just the opposite, that are absolute hammers, and they throw the popping frog all the time. So
yeah, could be just a confidence thing, probably, like you said.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, a 10-pounder on a frog, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, just to I mean, like some of our lakes around here, just to go catch a 20-pound sack or 25-pound sack and do it all on a frog that's pretty phenomenal fishing day. So
yeah, we got a little window right here in Southeast Missouri and Southern Illinois you can do that right now. I mean, I'm not sure if it's going on right now because I've been fishing other lakes. I'm getting ready to find out like here in the next couple of weeks if it's going on, but there is that window that opens up right now where you can catch 25 pounds on a frog. It just lasts for a couple of weeks. We really need a good cold front. We get a really good cold front to come through and push that water temperature down like in the high 50s, and it can get stupid for a week.
So
or two.
you got like hydrilla and grass lakes? Are you fishing like reeds or wood, or what do you guys get to frog fishing?
It's milfoil and coontail. We don't have any hydrilla around here, but we get some pretty good mats. I mean, we got some juicy mats, especially since we haven't had much rain. That water levels drop down. That stuff's kind of flopped over right now. It's got the little tassels and everything. It's right. You just got to get the right day where they're it needs
to get cold at night for a couple nights, and that stuff to kind of turn off and maybe even get a little brown, and then that sun get on it and warm it up, and they get their backs up there against it, and then it's the game on.
Yep. I need to hear that popcorn. You start hearing that popcorn going. You're like, okay, I I'm gonna put this frog in my hand and fish for 8 hours and keep throwing it.
We get that in the spring, but like during the mayfly hatch and stuff, we call it, that's like a worm hatch or whatever down here. But the bluegills, you hear them start to get to clicking and popping around that stuff, and it's over. It's frog fishing all day. So
yeah, I can't stop. It draws me in. I was fishing about a month ago. I was fishing here locally, and I was trying to do. I was doing an A rig video, like an early season A rig video before people really start throwing an A rig. And I'm out there, I'm in 30 foot of water, and I'm looking at them, and I'm catching a few, and I keep hearing this popping over there in the grass. It's just, and I'm like, no, don't go over there. We're gonna stay focused. We're doing a video. We've got an idea, we've got a concept. We got to stay out here off the bank. And finally, it got to be too much, man. I went over there, and I think it was like the fourth cast. I had one blow up on my frog, and then 20 minutes I'd caught 4, and I was running for the next 2 hours. I just kept running grass mats with a frog, and
A
rig
what?
Yeah, exactly. We'll throw this in January. This frog fishing going on right now. So
throw that in the winter time. Put that, don't pass up a frog bite ever for an A rig.
That's right, man. That's right. All right, man. We're gonna wrap it up. Nick, congratulations. It was great hanging out with you. Appreciate you sharing the details of the tournament and stuff. And good luck in December. Or is that when the next one is? December?
Yeah. First part of December. Yeah.
Good luck in that. But you made the championship, right? So you don't have to worry about it.
I did. I'm winning your end, so I get to fish championship next fall.
That's
I think it'll be on Hartwell. So
yeah, that's one of the things I really like about the NPFL is that championship. It's no entry fee, and you're fishing for big bucks. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's not very many of us either. It's a pretty small group. So
right. So any closing thoughts, any shout outs or anything for wrap her up?
Man, I just like to thank everybody that sponsored me and helped me out this year. And I'm kind of new with Bass Cat and Suzuki. And if y'all ain't looked at any of that stuff, you ought to go check it out. And Kistler Rods, if you never tried them, give them a shout and or give them a try or a shake. And if anybody ever sees me around and wants to go for a ride, I'd be glad to take them for a ride in my boat. But also want to say hi to my new grandbaby. So I'm sure my wife is watching with the kids, and they're probably waiting for that little shout out too. So
are you gonna spoil the grandbaby?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Everybody, my wife posted a picture earlier today, and Looney, I think, from Bass Cat, he put a post on there. He said, I a little scuttlebutt said maybe you was fixing to buy that boy a new Bass Cat. So
right. Hey, get him started young, man. Get him going young. We'll see. My boys both fish and hunt, so they're not as avid as I am about it, but it is what it is. We'll still spoil him. He's the first and only grandbaby so far. So yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's where my mom was. She definitely sugar them up and send them back home and let us deal with it. Thanks a lot, Mom. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Here. This is what you did to me. So absolutely, right. It's been great being on here, dude. I mean, always enjoy talking to you and sharing a little bit of knowledge, and hoping I can help people out. Like I said, if anybody's got any questions or have any more answers for me, you can always look me up on Facebook, whatever, message me. I'd be glad to help you out in any way I can.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation. There's a lot of good information. Everybody out there, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Do go check out Baitworks. They have a lot of stuff on sale right now. They're running some pretty good sales. So get over there on Baitworks, and you see in the ticker down there, THM10 will get you 10% off anything you order at Baitworks. But give them a look. There's a lot of good quality stuff. It's not like just, pink worms, and pink worms is great, but it's not that stuff that nobody wants to buy. It's actually really good stuff. They're just
that store's impressive.
What's that?
That store is impressive. I stopped there on the way up. I'd never been in there, and they sponsor the NPFL, and I stopped in there to do a little visit on the way up, and guys in there were super helpful, and they had a lot more stuff in there than I thought they had. So
yeah, it's a good place to go in there and spend $200 or $300 if you're not careful, because
they had some pretty hard to get stuff in there too. So
yeah, it's a great place. I wish it was a little. Well, I'm glad it's like 4 or 5 hours away, because I'd probably be broke. But they do have really fast shipping. If you order by 1 o'clock, they ship it that day, so it gets there pretty quick. Anyway, enough of that. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We do this every Tuesday, so I hope to see you guys next week. And Nick, thanks again, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate it.